All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Winnetka Village Council regular meeting for October 15th, 2024. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please mute your cell phones and other electronic devices, and I'll ask Rob to do a roll call for attendance.
Thank you. Trustee Apatow?
Here.
Orsic?
Here.
Trustee Handler?
Here.
Trustee Dearborn?
Here.
Trustee Albinson?
Here.
Trustee Dahlman?
Here.
President Rintz.
Here. Okay, item 2 is Pledge of the Allegiance, and Bridget has agreed to lead. Thank you. Item 3 is quorum check.
Yes, thank you. November 1st, all-day budget meeting. November 7th is being combined with November 12th.
Yay.
And then November 19th. Are there any conflicts? Should know.
I'm good. The 19th is a possible conflict. I'm working on it.
On the 19th?
Yeah.
Okay,
The first two are fine.
thank you.
We good? Okay, item 4 is public comment. This is the time of the evening where anybody who wishes to can address council on any item that is not on the agenda. And I have one person signed in tonight. Ted, come on up.
It's rather sad here today. It seems like no one cares. Hi. So, I wanted to come by and talk about something. So, my alleged criminality. So, while we're still working on possibly, avoiding trial and things like that, I've come to peace with the fact that it may go to trial. And I think I've come to peace with it because other than the waste of my time and money, it seems to me almost all but certain that the village will not prevail. Because the village has to prove that I was given notice and was trespassing on, well, that's part of the problem, right? The village in their complaint never said where I was trespassing. Regardless. But while looking through the history of things, I came across a number of things, and there's something that people keep saying that is clearly now not true. And it should be reinforced, but perhaps it won't be. Perhaps for the same reasons that the police department seemed to treat the people in my situation that made the complaint differently from me and other people in the public, and perhaps because there seems to be some sort of deference given to people based on their wealth. That shouldn't be. But the problem is that everyone keeps talking about the still water line or the ordinary high water mark as if it is some sort of rigid, fixed demarcation between private and public land. And that is clearly not true. The village attorney, January of 2023, in their packet, their legal analysis of the issue on page 14 stated, it is not always possible to determine where the current boundary line is between private and public ownership. And that is crystal clear because to really determine, and I have email communications from the NIDRNR about this and stuff, to really determine where the line is, you would have to go back to the lakeshore as it existed in 1787 when the Northwest Ordinance was created. Then you would have to move forward in time and look at changes to the lakeshore, accretion, reliction, erosion, and whether or not those changes were the result of natural or artificial causes, and then whether or not, if it was an artificial cause, whether that was the cause of the upland property owner or someone else. And then you'd have to come to today and you'd have to figure out what land was there, wasn't there. It would be impossible. And the burden would be on the person claiming the private land to prove that, not someone walking along the beach. And I think this is a really important thing, and I'm going to go over a little bit. No one else is here. And I think this is a really important thing because it is clear that the owner at 205 Sheridan has violated the IDNR permit. They built structures out over the lake. They're covering them with sand. And they had no permit for that. They were told they needed to get a permit for that. They ignored it. Now a permit has been issued retroactively, which is a problem in itself. But all that sand there is going to be above the water, it is going to be dry, and it's all going to be public. And if the village sticks with this idea, if feet wet in the water, that's public and other stuff is private, it is lying and doing a disservice to the entire community, because that beach will be a public beach. And they're actually building a nice little patio out there in that break wall. It looks like very slow and it looks very nice. So that's all public land. That's all public property. And I foresee, perhaps someone, will go out there and will set up an umbrella, maybe have a little snack on their little thing with a lawn chair. And I foresee that the security people will call the police, and the police will come out, and they'll claim that this is not private, public, and the village needs to firmly establish that it's not just being in the water, but it's where the water should be and how it changed in the last 100 years. We have had an engineered lakeshore for over 100 years now. It would be impossible for the private property owner or the village to say any given bit of sand is private or public. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
Okay. Item 5 this evening is reports. We'll start with Tina.
Just a quick report that was attended last week, the ribbon cutting of Hune Bakery in Hubbard Woods. I encourage everybody to go and visit. The baked goods are quite tasty. So I think that was identified a while ago on the caucus survey as one of the goals for the village. And our village staff did a great job of reaching out to Hune and making that happen. So that's all I have.
Great, thanks, Tina. Kirk?
No report.
Bob?
No report.
Kim?
No report.
Bridget?
No report.
Rob?
None tonight?
Okay. Village attorney?
No report tonight.
Village manager?
Just briefly, recently we mailed the popular annual financial report. I hope you all received it. If not, let me know and get copies. This is an opportunity where you take complex financial information and try to boil it down to high level, so the typical person can read it, but those that are into finance and accounting should be able to understand it at a higher level as well. This report has received last year the award for outstanding achievement in popular annual financial reporting. And I'd like to thank Tim and his staff for all the work, and Josie for putting it all together in our communications plan. So thank you.
Yep.
Good job.
And
job.
people actually respond positively to receiving that. It actually surprised me how many people have mentioned that they received it and actually looked at it. So, good job. Adds to our transparency as well. Okay, moving forward, establishment of the consent agenda. Does any trustee wish to remove an item on the consent agenda for a separate vote? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the final form of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
The voice vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Now we'll move forward with the approval of the consent agenda. And Rob, if you'd read the items, that'd be great.
Thank you. Approval of the village council minutes for October 1st, 2024, regular meeting. Approval of the warrant list dated September 9, 2024 through September 20th, 2024 in the amount of $618,317.70. Resolution number R75, 2024, approving and authorizing the adoption of the Cook County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan. Resolution number R77, waiving bidding and approving a contract with OK Electric Company for electrical services at the Winnetka Pump Station. And resolution number R80, 2024, approving agreement with Ancura Consulting LLC for consulting services.
Thanks, Rob. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda by omnibus vote?
So moved.
Second.
That's a roll call vote.
Trustee Handler?
Yes.
Trustee Dahlman?
Yes.
Trustee Apatow?
Yes.
Trustee Orsick?
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn?
Yes.
Trustee Alvinson?
Yes. Carries, thank you. Item 8, ordinances and resolution. This is resolution number R76, 2024, approving an agreement with Gawalt Hamilton Associates, Inc. for Hubbard Woods Streetscape Phase 1 study. At the June 11, 2024 Village Council study session, the council reviewed the Hubbard Woods Business District streetscape design concepts presented by Tesco. Tonight, council will review the proposal for the Phase 1 study. And our Assistant Village Engineer, Obed Khalid, is here to review. Take it away.
Thank you, President. Good evening, village trustees. So today I will present the Hubbard Woods Streetscape Phase 1 study. and I would like to start with a brief background of the project. So, as you may already know, that the Winnetka Downtown Master Plan vision is to improve all the 3 business districts of Village, and Hubbard Woods is one of them. And Village plans to continue implementing the streetscape improvement in Hubbard Woods district, similarly to those that were constructed in Elm Business District in last few years. So last year in September, Village engaged Tasca Associate to develop a streetscape master plan for Hubbard Woods district. Since then, Tasca Associate conduct several community outreach events and the surveys to include the community input and the feedback in developing those streetscape design options. Earlier this year, Jody from Tasca presented the streetscape design concept to the Village Council during the study session of June 11. The design concept she presented includes the improvements such as intersection bump outs, mid-block crossings to improve the pedestrian safety, and also the installation of the stop sign and modification of the existing traffic flow along the Hubbard Woods metro station to improve the traffic study. So before we finalize the design option, a detailed traffic study is necessary to evaluate all those alternative options to check the feasibility of those options and the impact of those proposed improvement. So this is the overall map of the project. Hubbard Wood District runs along the Green Bay Road from Scott Avenue to Tower Road. As you may already know, the Green Bay Road is an IDOT road. Just to note, in the proposed design concept, which Jody presented, some elements were proposed in a IDOT road, which IDOT will not allow those elements in a state right-of-way, such as bump outs and the mid-block crossing. And in order to construct those improvements, a jurisdictional transfer of the section of the Green Bay Road from Scott Avenue to Tower Road would be necessary if Village would like to pursue those options. So let's talk about the scope of this study. Before I talk, I just add a little bit more context. As I mentioned, the Green Bay Road is a state or IDOT road, and for any improvement project along the state-owned road or for a jurisdictional transfer, IDOT requires to complete the Phase 1 engineering report. Also, Phase 1 engineering report is also necessary if we like to qualify for federal or state grants for this project. So therefore, to accomplish our goal, we split the scope of the study into 2 parts. First part is traffic and feasibility study, and the second part is Phase 1 engineering report. So in part 1, the traffic and feasibility section, the goal is to gather the data from the existing condition to evaluate the overall feasibility of the design alternatives, intersection analysis, evaluate the traffic circulation options along Hubbard Woods metro station, and analysis of the on-street parking and pedestrian movement in order to improve the overall safety of the district. After the completion of the part 1, the recommendations and the findings will be presented to the Village Council, which will help us finalizing the design option for the Hubbard Woods District streetscape project. After finalizing the design option, the study will continue with the part 2 to complete the Phase 1 engineering report, which is an IDOT requirement, and it will include the environmental study, the preliminary drainage analysis, and the finalizing of the intersection design for the project. So This slide showing the overall schedule of the study. As you can see, the study will take the rest of 2024 and extend into 2025. The study will be completed in October 2025, and the final report will be presented to Village Council for review. So this is the overall budget for the study. Village approved 2024 budget includes $100,000 in business district revitalization fund for this year, and the village plan to include $210,000 for next year. With that, the overall budget of the study will be $310,000 for next 2 years. So on August 8th, we requested 10 professional engineering firms to provide the proposal for the proposed study. We received only 2 proposals as listed in this table. Staff review and evaluate each proposal and rank using a scale of 1 to 10 for 4 factors, including project understanding, project approach, firm experience, and the project team experience. Based on the total review score, Gavelton Hamilton received the highest score, as you can see in this table. And after reviewing both firms based on their qualification, the fee proposal from both the firms were compared, and you can see Gavelton Hamilton has the most favorable proposal with the highest review score and the lowest proposal fee. Gavelton Hamilton has performed a similar study in 2020 at the city of Lake Forest, and they also work with other communities like Wilmette, Glencoe, Northbrook, and Deerfield. With that, staff is recommending the council to consider adopting the resolution to award the contract to Gavelton Hamilton with the amount not to exceed $309,501 over the 2 fiscal year. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Obaid, I want to make it clear that the design that you're talking about is the engineering design, not the architectural design and the actual streetscaping. This is all the stuff
Yes,
that's under the pavement.
That's just a phase 1 design we are talking about, which usually IDOT considered to review the project or review the feasibility of any project that was proposed on the state road or used to advance the jurisdictional transfer. This is not the design of the project, neither the engineering or neither the architecture.
Great. Thank you.
The $309,000, that's for both pieces of phase 1. How much I guess I'm trying to understand, how much is really on the first part of phase 1 and of the 309 is in the second part of phase 1? It seems like a fair amount of money
Yeah,
for what we're doing.
I do not have the exact number. I think in their proposal, they break down their proposed hour for both the part, and I think it's about 150 if I recall correct.
The feasibility study is 106.
Yes.
100, that's that one, or that's
Phase-
2/3.
Phase 1 is 202.
Okay. Okay. And that's, I mean, I know it's the lowest of the 2 bids, but you seem very comfortable with that number for what they're doing.
Yes, we did this. I think we did this kind of study when we are doing the other project, and then we also compare from the phase 1 study what usually typically costs. So it's in that range, and the staff is comfortable what they're proposing. They will accomplish to complete the study.
Sorry, when we worked with David to put this information together, for most streetscape project Phase 1, it's a lot of detail. There's the legal analysis, ownerships, easements, as well as the traffic study, which is just a component of it. Most streetscape Phase 1 reports typically range anywhere between $300,000 to $700,000, depending on the complexity and the size of the
the size
project.
of it.
Yeah. In this specific case, the traffic piece was the first, right? And then we get into the legal aspect. We have a lot of different parcel ownerships as part of this. So you have Metra,
Right.
you've got the Park District, you've got pieces that are IDOT, and old parcels that have changed over time. That's really when you start to get into some of that component of it.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're comfortable with the number. This is actually a very good number for the project that we're doing just up from Scott Path.
That's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah.
We were initially carrying, or at least projecting this to be at about 400,000
Yeah.
for the work, so it came in fairly competitive.
I visited Kirk at the farmer's market last Saturday and got, a few more comments about fixing that traffic problem by Minos. And the question becomes, do we wait? Is there anything, I know it's a state road, but can we put in flashers on that one crosswalk without having to get permission from the state? We can or we cannot?
We need to work with IDOT.
We still have to work with IDOT just to put in the flashers okay. Not a stop sign, but just pedestrian crossing.
Anything that you do on a state road, you have to get IDOT permission.
Okay.
Right. And IDOT no longer installs those because there was legal cases against them with people getting hit. So if we decide to try to install some kind of an apparatus like that, there's a lot of legal back and forth that goes back about who's liable, who's taking ownership, our responsibility. There's a lot of sign off for it. We're heading in the right direction to come up with a better permanent design. I don't think we want to be too preemptive with it, but I understand the concern.
Okay, can I just clarify? I think, Chris, you were trying to clarify this, but I guess I'd ask one more question. When I'm looking at the descriptions of final intersection design study, preliminary drainage analysis, that is of existing conditions, right? Because if we're not venturing yet into what the different architectural designs would be in terms of bump outs and different kind of intersections, that couldn't be studied. Am I correct in this, my understanding?
No, so we've already developed those concepts. So as part of the Phase 1, once they have the traffic analysis, they can go back and look at the feasibility of what provides the best recommendation for the
Okay, so
the
this
design.
will be, these reports will be based on the concepts that we saw from the TESCA
The
report.
existing conditions and the
And the
proposed.
proposed,
That's
okay.
correct. And so this will help, once we have the traffic analysis, it'll help us move forward with where we actually want to land in the design, and more specifically, the traffic flow. As you know, one of the concepts had reversing the horseshoe around Maryland Gauge and intersections. That's what this is going to bring to light as part of the traffic, and that'll help the council formulate which traffic patterns do we like. Then we can get into the actual design of bump outs and things like that. This is more about the area itself and the study of what we're proposing to do.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else?
Can I ask just a couple of questions? And maybe just going back, we'll get a little 2-week prelim on budgeting. It looked to me on this that we budgeted $100,000 for this year and that we plugged what we're doing for 2025. I mean, is that
Correct.
essentially? Did we have anything in, is this a capital expenditure? Do we have anything in there for?
It's in the Business District Revitalization Plan, and I would have to go back to confirm, but I recall we were carrying Phase 1 expenses
Yes.
for Hubbard Woods.
And you think it was $300,000 for 2025?
I'd have to go back
Yeah,
to confirm,
okay.
but I
Yeah,
But
remember.
that's-
we split it between the 2 years.
But the point is that the contract came in at 309. You were comfortable with it, and we made it work over 2 years. That's essentially right.
Yeah.
Okay. And the second question I had, and Chris, I'm going back to some of your comments about the jurisdictional transfer challenges. And I'm a little fuzzy now on, do we think that that's going to happen in Hubbard Woods? This engineering study is contemplating that.
We can't take the conversations any further
Without-
we have this.
Without billing, and so if we get slow-walked for 5 years on this, this study collects dust on the shelf?
No.
I mean.
I don't know what slow walk means. I mean,
Well, we don't get it done. We don't get it done. We don't get the we don't get control of the road.
It's kind of like Streetscapes had on the shelf for 10 years.
It's the chicken and the egg a little bit here. We've got to do this, but we don't know what's going to happen.
Right. I
And-
think
but-
what I can say is preliminary conversations with IDOT, when we met with them and kind of gave them the overall concept, they were interested. They're definitely interested. They actually recommended being a partner with us, going after some federal and state grants. There were a lot of things that were just talked conceptual-wise. Now, this report is actually just that first piece. Once we have that, we can finalize the design, and then once we have that design, then we go back to IDOT and say, here's the ask. Here's what we're thinking, here's what we want to do, and then see if the jurisdictional transfer and what they're offering back is worth it. And then the council could consider what options are there, and if it's something the council says, yeah, let's take it over and work with them to get a grant to help pay for it, then that'll be the next step. But in the meantime, we can continue to advance the design. We can, but we need this piece first.
So if the terms of trade were not appealing to the group and the decision was made not to do that,
Right.
is there value still that comes out of this study?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You need this study, because even if we decide not to do the jurisdictional transfer and it changes how we design it, in other words, we can't include certain bump outs or stop signs or things like that, we can still work with IDOT to still pursue grants. So you need this as that key to be able to go after that, and that's what we want. Tim likes grants.
And it gets it positioned, if we don't have a JT, to do it within the negotiated terms with IDOT. So it's a JT or not, but you're still moving improvements forward.
Got it. Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Can you go back to the slide that showed the map of the study area? So, two questions. On the north end, at the edge of the village with Glencoe, what happens with the area in Glencoe that we have discussed would be a part of this streetscape improvement that we'd have to do in partnership with Glencoe? And then the second part is, at the south end, at one of the kickoff meetings, we had talked about extending to the south, at least the design area, to include up to Chatfield.
Yeah, just around
Yeah.
where the double.
And so how are
singles.
those two areas addressed within this study?
These are covered as part of that.
Okay.
So the study will investigate how the intersections operate now. Again, the coordination, we don't need to coordinate with Glencoe to do the study piece. If we decide to make modifications and we start to get into the property components, that's when we would circle back with Glencoe on that final design, if there's anything we needed to work with that, if we're going to change those intersections.
Okay, thank you.
Just a couple thoughts. I think this is good value. I work with Gawalt Hamilton all the time. I think they do excellent work. I wasn't shocked by the price, given what we do on projects we're redeveloping, and we're taking on responsibility as a developer for doing roadway construction. Couple thoughts I had, though, is I think there is always this concern, is this another study that will collect dust and will lose its relevance? If we wait, I mean, we all know Hubbard Woods is a dangerous situation, especially those of us who live up there and you try to cross at Merrill or even Gage sometimes. This will help, in my opinion, advance the discussion regardless of a jurisdictional transfer because if we are going to wait for IDOT to do the study, it will be a long time. So I think this is just a real positive to get this going, regardless of what happens to who controls. So I'm in support.
Okay, anybody else? Let's see where we go. Okay, thanks, Obed, thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
All right, may I have a motion to adopt resolution number R76, 2024?
So moved.
Second?
That's a roll call vote?
Trustee Alvinson?
Yes.
Trustee Dahlman?
Yes.
Trustee Apatow?
Yes.
Trustee Orsic?
Yes.
Trustee Handler?
Yes?
Trustee Dearborn?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Next item is resolution number R78, 2024, approving a grant agreement between the Village of Winnetka and the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. Tonight, Village Council will review a grant agreement between the Village and the Department of Commerce, DCOE, for grant funds related to the Hibbard Preserve Stormwater Storage Project and the Crow Island Underground Stormwater Storage Facility Project. That's a mouthful. I will talk to staff about making this a simpler read in the future. Tim's here to run through the dollars and cents on this?
Sure. Good evening. This is a good news item for the village. Back in 2020, the village was notified by State Representative Robin Gable's office that there were 2 line item grants for the village in association for the purpose of costs associated with the stormwater management improvements. Those grants were for $16 million and $12 million. And if you recall, in 2022, the $16 million grant was released by the DCEO, and we went through an official application process and finalized an agreement of April of 2023, and then received the full funding of the $16 million by the end of the fiscal year. Now moving on to the $12 million grant. In April of this year, we received notification that $7 million of the $12 million has been released from the DCEO, and we've now gone through that same application process and are recommending adoption of the resolution to officially approve the grant agreement. Once approved, we anticipate being able to submit and receive the full $7 million in funding in this fiscal year. And we are also looking towards next year, probably third quarter, for the release of that remaining $5 million. Both of the $16 million and now the $7 million grants have been dedicated to the storage component of the Western Stormwater Project. And additionally, we also received federal ARPA funding of $1.6 million and MWRD grants totaling $1.4 million that were dedicated to that storage project. So just in total, we have received $26,074,288 in grant funding, which covered 94.44% of that $27.6 million stormwater project. And just a final note, I'm just actually getting through the process with the state and the DCO's formal application process. We are learning, we're getting much more efficient. When we went through the first process, it took about 14 months to get through that whole application process. We got it down to under half that amount, under 6 months. So we're learning to work with the right people and get through these processes quicker. And that's all I have on the grants.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Yeah, that's a skill set that the village was sorely missing before this current regime came in, and you guys have been doing an awesome job, not only identifying but pursuing grants, and you're getting better at it too, for sure.
Right.
You know, and that's good for the community and it's good for everybody else too. And the one thing I wanted to really acknowledge here is that you know how important Representative Gable's support has been.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that she was able to come up here and share a vision when there was nothing here, and then recognize how important of a need this was for our community, and then to actively go out and find a way to get us the money was really impressive, and certainly she deserves my support in a lot of ways, and my high appreciation for everything she's done for this community. So thanks for that. Anyway, anybody else have questions? Or
I was just going to add one quick story. As she was working the Capitol bill, we were all working from home during COVID, working in my home office, and she called me and she's like, "How much do you need?" And I go, "Are you sitting down?" And she said, "Okay, I'll try," and she delivered. So
That's great.
She really did a nice job.
Yep. Questions?
I just had a quick question. The $5 million, is there a reason why that's not being released now? Is it just because of submittal materials? I'm just curious why it's, you know.
I think it's just political timing on funding priorities at the state level. I don't think it has anything to do with our project, or it's just kind of a timing issue on their end.
The one thing that I think we've all learned is you may end up getting a grant, right? But what pot of money it's coming out of can change 3 or 4 times during the course of submitting and actually getting your dollars. And this is one of those that's kind of bounced around. We've pulled from a couple of pots from
Yeah, it
downstate,
was
right?
originally in the Build Illinois Bond Fund, and then when they received coronavirus ARPA funds, they switched it to that. And then I think this final $5 million is going to come out of a third fund by the time it gets released.
Yeah, so it's all good stuff, and it's $28 million we haven't got to worry about. So, all right, let's move this forward. May I have a motion to adopt resolution number R78, 2024?
So moved.
Second.
That's a roll call vote.
Trustee Apatoff?
Yes.
Trustee Orsick?
Yes.
Trustee Handler?
Yes,
Trustee Dearborn?
Yes.
Trustee Albinson?
Yes.
Trustee Dahlman?
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks, Tim.
No, I just want to make sure I didn't miss it. Okay. All right. Old business, none. New business, none. Appointments, none. Closed session. I would like to ask for a motion to adjourn to closed session for the purpose of reviewing closed session minutes and specific personnel pursuant to Section 2C121 and 2C11 of the Open Meetings Act.
So moved.
Under the motion, when we adjourn the closed session, this meeting will automatically and immediately adjourn without the conduct of any further business or comments. May I have that motion?
So moved. Yes, no.
Need a second?
Second.
Roll call vote?
Trustee Apatow. Trustee Orsic.
Yes.
Yes.
Trustee Handler.
Yes.
Trustee Dearborn.
No.
Trustee Alvinson. Trustee Dahlman.
Yes.
We're out.